The suitcase was open on the bed. That was the first thing Maya saw when she waddled through the bedroom door, one hand pressed to her lower back, the other carrying a glass of warm milk her doctor had recommended for the third trimester. She stopped in the doorway. The glass trembled slightly in her hand. Daniel. His name came out not as a question, not even as an accusation, just a word, flat, like a stone dropped into still water. He was folding a linen shirt, the pale blue one she had ironed for him the morning of their anniversary dinner last spring. He looked up, and for one terrible second, he smiled. That easy, disarming smile she had fallen in love with 7 years ago in a college library when he borrowed her highlighter and never gave it back. "Hey, you should be resting," he said, turning back to the suitcase. Maya set the glass down on the dresser before she dropped it. "Why is your suitcase out?" He exhaled, not a sigh of guilt, but the breath of a man who had already rehearsed this conversation and decided it would go fine. "Mom and Dad planned this trip. Italy, babe. Florence and the coast. They booked it months ago as a family thing, and I really can't say no to them. You know how Dad's health has been." She stared at him. Her belly, round and heavy, and carrying their daughter, tightened with a Braxton Hicks contraction. She breathed through it slowly. "Daniel, my due date is tomorrow. I know." He said it gently, as though gentleness could cushion the shape of what he was doing. "But first, babies almost always come late. My sister was 2 weeks late, remember? The doctor said, you're not even fully dilated yet. The odds are, the odds," she repeated quietly. "I'll have my phone on the whole time. The moment you call, I'll get on the first flight back. I promise." He crossed the room and touched her face, tilting her chin up the way he always did when he wanted her to believe something. "It'll be fine, Maya. You're the strongest person I know." She said nothing. She simply looked at him, at the man she had married, the man who had held her hand through every ultrasound, who had painted the nursery yellow on a rainy Saturday in March, and she felt something shift inside her, not the baby, something older, something quieter. The very last corner of blind trust she had kept for him folded over silently, like a page turned in a book nearly finished. He zipped the suitcase at midnight. He kissed her forehead at the door. And then he was gone, wheels rolling down the driveway, tail lights dissolving into the dark, leaving Maya standing alone in a house that suddenly felt much too large for one person, and not quite ready enough for two. The pain woke her at 3:47 in the morning. Not the dull, practice tightening she had grown used to over the past few weeks. This was something else entirely. This was a wave that started deep in her spine and rolled forward like a tide that had been building for months and had finally, decisively, reached the shore. Maya gripped the bedsheet and breathed through it the way the birthing class instructor had taught. Slow counts in, slow counts out, while the room around her sat perfectly silent and perfectly indifferent. She reached for her phone. Her fingers found Daniel's name before her mind even made the decision. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. She tried again. Voicemail. She looked at the timestamp on his last message, sent from Rome at 11 p.m. Her time. A photo of a pasta dish with a single heart emoji beneath it. She set the phone face down on the mattress. The second contraction came 8 minutes later. Then the third, 6 minutes after that. She called Mrs. Patel, the old woman next door, 71 years old, with arthritic hands and a 2009 Honda that smelled of cardamom and old newspapers, answered on the second ring as though she had been waiting. Perhaps she had. She had checked on Maya every single day since Daniel left, arriving each morning with a small container of something warm, lentil soup, rice pudding, once a thermos of ginger tea, and leaving without making Maya feel pitied. She was at the front door, in 4 minutes flat, car keys already in hand, a small bag over her shoulder, as though she had packed it in advance. "I have you," Mrs. Patel said simply, taking Maya's arm. Nothing more was needed. The drive to the hospital was 31 minutes. Maya counted contractions, 4 of them, each one closer and harder than the last. Mrs. Patel drove with quiet focus, one hand occasionally reaching over to press Maya's, knee, in a gesture so steady and warm it made Maya's eyes fill in a way that Daniel's heart emoji had not. The nurses moved fast, forms were signed, monitors attached, a gown pulled on in a curtained bay while fluorescent lights hummed overhead with complete disregard for the enormity of what was happening beneath them. A nurse asked if her husband was on his way. Maya said yes, because it was easier than the truth. He was not on his way. He was asleep in a hotel in Florence with the phone on silent, the pasta photograph still glowing on his camera roll, the time difference a convenient excuse he would reach for later. Lily arrived at 6:18 in the morning, furious and perfect and screaming with the full force, someone who had already decided the world owed her better. The doctor placed her on Maya's chest, and Maya, exhausted, shaking, entirely alone except for Mrs. Patel crying quietly in the corner, with her arthritic hands pressed to her mouth, felt a love so complete and so savage it rearranged everything inside her. Daniel called at 9 a.m. She let it ring twice before answering. He was laughing about something in the background when she picked up, his voice bright with the particular carelessness of a person on holiday. She told him quietly, without drama, without tears. There was a long pause on his end, then apologies, rapid, stumbling, full of the word sorry, repeated so many times it lost its shape entirely. Maya looked down at Lily, who had closed her eyes and curled her small fist against her mother's free chest like a question mark, like a period, like a promise. "Drive safe," Maya said, and hung up. Daniel came home on a Thursday, rolling his suitcase through the front door with a duty-free bag in one hand and guilt written across his face in the particular way of men who know they have done something unforgivable and are hoping charm might quietly cover it over. He had bought a cashmere blanket for Lily, a gold bracelet for Maya, a bottle of aged olive oil for nobody in particular, which said everything about the state of his thinking. He set the gifts on the kitchen counter and then stood there looking at his daughter for the first time, really looking at her, this small creature who had arrived in the world without him, and Maya watched his eyes fill and felt nothing move inside her. Not forgiveness, not anger, just a vast, still quiet, like the surface of a lake after a stone has already sunk. He said sorry every day for 2 weeks. He said it over breakfast, over the baby monitor, in the dark at 2 a.m., when Lily woke crying and he leapt up to prove himself useful. He was attentive in the way only guilty people can be, relentlessly, exhaustingly attentive. And Maya accepted it all with a politeness that she slowly began to recognize as the first wall she had ever built between them. It was Priya who told her the truth, as sisters always eventually do. She had come to stay for a week when Lily was 6 weeks old, sleeping on the couch and washing dishes without being asked, and holding the baby so Maya could shower for longer than 4 minutes. One evening, after Lily had gone down and Daniel had retreated to his office, Priya sat across from Maya at the kitchen table with 2 cups of tea and the particular expression she wore when she was about to say something that needed to be said. "He knew about the trip," Priya said quietly, 3 weeks before your due date. Mom mentioned it. She thought you knew. Maya set her cup down. "What?" "His mother told our mother at the Diwali lunch. She said Daniel had confirmed he was going, that you both agreed the timing was fine." Priya watched her carefully. "Did you agree, Maya?" She had not agreed. She had not even been asked. She sat with that for a long moment, the specific shape of it, the deliberateness it implied. This had not been a spontaneous decision made under family pressure. He had known. He had packed that pale blue shirt with full knowledge of what he was leaving behind, and he had smiled at her in the doorway anyway, tilting her chin up, telling her she was the strongest person he knew, which she now understood was simply a cleaner way of saying he was counting on her strength to absorb what he was about to do. Something in her did not break. It had already broken the night he left. What happened now was quieter and more deliberate, the sound of a woman beginning to put herself back together according to her own blueprint, without reference to anyone else's design. She went back to work when Lily was 4 months old, part-time at first, then full. She was an architect, and she returned to her drafting table the way you return to a language you had feared you forgotten, haltingly at first, then with a fluency that surprised even her. Her colleagues welcomed her back warmly, her mind, sharpened rather than dulled by everything she had survived, produced some of the clearest work of her career. She called Priya every evening on the walk home. She started running again on Sunday mornings, while Daniel watched Lily, earphones in, feet, finding a rhythm on the pavement that felt like reclaiming something that had always belonged to her. She redecorated the living room in colors she chose alone. She opened a savings account in her own name, which she told no one about, and deposited into it every month with the quiet, purposeful patience of a woman who is building towards something she has not yet named aloud. Daniel noticed the distance but misread its shape. He mistook her composure for healing, her politeness for forgiveness, her silence for peace. He brought her flowers on a Friday and suggested a weekend away, the two of them, his parents happy to take Lily. Maya smiled and said she would think about it. She was already thinking about something else entirely. Lily's first birthday was 8 months away. Maya had already begun to plan, not the party, though she planned that too, with yellow balloons and lemon cake and Mrs. Patel in the seat of honor. She was planning something else, something patient and precise, and in its own quiet way, completely devastating. Lily's first birthday fell on a Saturday in early October, when the light comes in low and golden, and the air carries just enough chill to make everything feel significant. Maya had arranged the house beautifully. Yellow balloons clustered in the corners, lemon cake on a stand in the center of the table, a small banner that read 1 in hand-cut letters that Priya had helped make the night before. Mrs. Patel arrived first, dressed in a coral salwar kameez, carrying a stuffed elephant nearly as large as herself, and Maya held her for a long moment at the store, in a hug that said everything words would have made smaller. Daniel's parents arrived at noon. His mother, Sunita, swept in with the practiced grandeur of a woman accustomed to being the emotional center of every room, a large gift bag in each hand, air kisses deployed efficiently, compliments about the decorations offered in the tone of someone grading a student's project. His father followed quietly, as he always did, a man shaped over decades into the background of his wife's performance. Daniel stood beside them, looking pleased, looking like a man who believed the worst was behind him, which is precisely the most dangerous thing a person can believe. Maya served everyone tea. She moved through the room with a calm so complete it had its own texture, warm, unhurried, impenetrable. She refilled cups. She laughed at the right moments. She held Lily on her hip and let Sunita take photographs and said, "Yes, she's so big now. Yes, she has Daniel's eyes. Yes, the year has gone so fast, hasn't it?" After the cake was cut and Lily's face was properly covered in frosting and the photographs had been taken and Sunita had begun telling a story about Daniel's own first birthday that nobody had asked to hear, Maya set Lily carefully in Mrs. Patel's waiting arms, excused herself to the kitchen, and returned with a manila envelope. She placed it on the table in front of Daniel with the same quiet steadiness she had placed cups of tea. No drama, no raised voice, no trembling hands, just a woman setting something down that had been a long time coming. "What's this?" he asked, still half smiling, reaching for it with the confidence of a man who does not yet know the ground has shifted. "Divorce papers," Maya said. "I filed on Thursday." The room went very still. Sunita's story stopped mid-sentence. Daniel's father looked at the table. Mrs. Patel, who knew everything, pressed her cheek gently to the top of Lily's head. Daniel looked up at her with an expression she had never seen on him before. Not guilt this time, not charm, but something stripped and undefended, the face beneath all the faces. "Maya, I bought a house," she said simply. "Priya helped me. We close next week. It has a yellow kitchen and a garden big enough for Lily to run in, and it is mine." She paused. "I'm not angry, Daniel. I want you to know that. I'm not doing this out of anger." And that was the truest thing she said all day. because it was not anger that had carried her through the past 12 months. It was something far more durable. It was the memory of standing alone in a hospital corridor at 6 a.m., in a paper gown, contractions 2 minutes apart, calling a 71-year-old neighbor because the man who had promised to be her person had chosen pasta in Florence instead. It was the memory of holding Lily for the first time with no one beside her who was supposed to be there. It was the slow, private knowledge, gathered over 12 careful months, that she had already been living her life alone. She was simply making it official now, and doing it on her own terms, in her own home, with lemon cake on the table and yellow balloons in the corners, and the one woman who had actually shown up, sitting in the seat of honor with a stuffed elephant and a heart full of love. Daniel said her name once more. She did not answer it. She walked back to Mrs. Gaur Patel and took Lily into her arms, and her daughter grabbed a fistful of her hair and laughed the enormous, uncomplicated laugh of a 1-year-old who knows nothing of betrayal and everything of joy, and Maya laughed too, genuinely, freely, from somewhere deep that had been quiet for a long time. Outside, the October light poured through the window and lay in long, warm rectangles across the floor, and Maya stood in one of them, her daughter on her hip, her future already purchased and waiting, and felt, for the first time in longer than she could remember, entirely and completely like herself.